So what it tells me is I think AOC is going to try to run for president. I don't think she's going to, like, if she was going to go after Schumer, I feel like she would have said, fuck Schumer, like something against Schumer. But she didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's bad news to me because I want some indication that she's set on running for the Senate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree about that. And what's really wild to me is seeing all of these kind of centrist and moderate Democrats acknowledge what you just said about Chuck Schumer, that he's a total dinosaur, that he needs to fucking go, that he's not fit for the moment. What really blew my mind, Kyle, the other night, on the night of Zoran's election in New York City, we were at a bar watching CNN. They're interviewing AOC, and she couldn't bring herself to say that about Chuck Schumer. I forget who the host was, but they're asking her, hey, what's your opinion on this, tension that people are talking about between you and Schumer? Are you going to potentially run to take him out? What's your feelings about his leadership at this moment? And she basically responded that that's just a line from the GOP, from the Republicans, to try to divide the Democrats, that her and Chuck Schumer love working together and that everything's hunky-dory. I was shocked by that because here we are in the night of this massive election for the DSA. I figured AOC would have the confidence, at least in that moment, to declare war on Chuck Schumer and to say, no, the gloves are off, motherfucker. We just won here in New York City. Kathy Hochul had to bend the knee. Hakeem Jeffries had to bend the knee. Now it's time for you to get the fuck out of town because we're the new, boss on the block. She wasn't able to do that. And again, it really blew my mind. It really struck me as a missed opportunity. And then, just a few days later, we see this. Obviously, Chuck Schumer didn't technically vote to reopen the government, but everyone acknowledges that he was behind the effort to cave to Donald Trump. What do you think the progressive message, specifically coming from people like AOC, should be towards Chuck Schumer in this moment? Do you think that the progressives need to get their ass together and really start acting like that left-flank Tea Party that's out for blood when it comes to the establishment Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, you can't get outflanked by fucking like Ezra Klein and Matt Iglesias and Jonathan Chait. That's just embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? It reminds me of when they were like, when Bernie and AOC were defending Biden well after the point where it was clear he had to step down because his brain wasn't working. So what it tells me is I think AOC is going to try to run for president. I don't think she's going to, like, if she was going to go after Schumer, I feel like she would have said, fuck Schumer, like something against Schumer, but she didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's bad news to me because I want some indication that she's set on running for the Senate because at this moment, I'm not sure she's ready to run for president. And like Senate would be perfect because I'd much rather have her in there than Chuck Schumer in there. But yeah, I mean, they got to grow some balls. The left flank has to grow some balls. I mean, you got like Graham Plattner's running and he's saying, I don't think Schumer should be the leader. And now I see people who were critical and skeptical of Plattner. Now we're out there like, fuck it. Let's let this guy try because what's in there now is fucking horrible. So it's unfortunate to see her go soft right now because to be fair, that was before the cave. Maybe there was a hope there of like, he's not going to cave. Maybe she didn't know about what they were working on. Because like for a second there, I thought, oh, the Democrats are going to ride this out. And so I was thinking like, thank God they're fucking fighting on one thing. But they didn't. And so now my guess, I'm curious what she's saying now. Maybe her tune has changed a little bit now because basically everybody I see now is like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, Kyle, speaking of running for president, you talked about the other day on Kyle and Core and how it would be easy for you yourself to win the nomination. You also just mentioned a couple seconds ago that you're hoping AOC doesn't run for the presidency. You're trying to clear the lane. You want the progressive lane all to yourself, the hardcore, aggressive, progressive. Obviously, I'm joking a little bit. I know that it was an off-the-cuff answer on Kyle and Corin, but I do, honestly want your answer. Is there even a 5% chance that you could be persuaded in the event that no one else steps up to the plate, no one like John Stewart, who you've been campaigning for, to run? Is there a chance that you could take a stab at it, even just to get on that first debate stage or maybe the second one too, not to take it overly seriously, but just to get on that debate stage, bro? I think it'd be worth it. Think about how viral those clips would be. You break out the Dickie McGee's X line on stage like that. The world explodes, the internet explodes. So is there even a 5% chance?
I'm very, very flattered that you guys would, talk about this, think about this, ask about this, but certainly not this election cycle. I would say no, because I'm 37 years old.
Legally allowed.
I am legally, I believe it's 35 is when you're legally allowed. So I'm 2 years clear of the legally allowed line, but Yeah, no, I don't think I do it now. I think there's plenty of others who are going to pick up that mantle and run with it. But, I'm going to do what I can from the outside to fucking, be a bull in a china shop and push all these people left. And like, I think the role for media, I think is super duper important. And I think I'm very well fitted for that role. And I think it's only going to, I think our space is only going to get even bigger moving forward. I think we are in some ways sort of becoming the standard bearer for the direction of the party. I feel a lot more now like what we do is a little bit more integrated into the broader left liberal Democrat movement than it's ever been before, in a way that like sort of mirroring like Daily Wire from 8 years ago or something like that. And so I like where we're positioned to actually have an impact on the body politic and shift the party left and sort of wake people up. But no, I would say for this election cycle, there's no chance that I would ever do it. Is it possible that when I'm like 50 or something that I might feel like I have to do it? I like the point that I made to Corin, I still stand by that point that like Crystal and I are both so fucking frustrated that there are times where we look at each other and we're like, how do none of these motherfuckers know what to say, know how to do this? Like, to me, the hard part about running for president to me would be all the other bullshit. Right? Everybody knows I'm an introvert. Everybody knows I don't like to travel. I'd hate getting on one plane and another plane and another plane and going to this place and that place. I hate the fucking, shaking hands and patting people on the back. And like Bernie said, I'm bad at remembering people's birthdays and shit like that. But like all the stuff where like the lights are on, where you got a microphone in front of you, there's a camera in front of you, you're being interviewed on this channel or you're doing a debate or whatever. That's all the shit that's fucking easy. That's all the shit that I would have no problem doing any of that and wiping the floor with anybody who wants to step to the plate. So, but I still ultimately, I wouldn't end up doing it because I think I'm too young. I wouldn't be taken seriously. My profile isn't that big. I know I'm big within the space that we occupy, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm actually not even that well known. If I were to ever run for president, I would want it to be at a place and a time where there's no doubt that I'm not going to get the indifference treatment. There's nothing more humiliating than the indifference treatment where like
Cougar treatment.
no matter what you say, no matter what you do, they're just like, well, I don't care because you're you and you're irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not at that point yet where I'm an undeniable character, like I could potentially become one of them, but I'm not yet. And I'm not at the point where they, there's some people that the cameras, they just can't keep the camera off the person. That happened with Trump. I think that would happen with John Stewart if he ran. But, I haven't been on Comedy Central for 78 straight years. I'm some asshole on YouTube, so I don't have the proper name recognition. I'm not old enough. I wouldn't be taken seriously. And I was being, of course, hyperbolic when I said it'd be easy to do. Of course, there's nothing fucking easy about running for president. But it is just frustrating watching these people going, really? You don't know what to say to that? You don't know how to respond to this? You don't know how to fight on this issue? You don't know the right thing to say on that issue? You don't know like the right strategy here? It just makes me go crazy because you guys know we're nerds. We follow this stuff so closely. I've been following this shit so closely since the fucking Bush administration. And sometimes I want to tear my hair out that these Democrats don't act in the exact way that you and I would act if we're in their shoes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you would make a really compelling candidate, and I guess my natural follow-up would be, okay, maybe president would be a long shot, but would you ever move back home and take on a guy like George Latimer?
No.
No.
I mean, not a chance. Not a chance.
Come on, bro.
No,
come on.
You mentioned John Stewart, and you've been an early advocate. I think we have covered it since you started talking about it as early as January, like immediately after the November election last year. You were talking about John Stewart. Is that still your number one guy, or are you kind of limiting yourself now to looking at people who are maybe more likely to run for president?
That's a good question. So we said some things recently that kind of annoyed me about the Rogan sphere and about the Saudi Arabia comedy thing. But I mean, I struggle to think who would be on top of him. Is there anybody else that you guys can float that would like give me pause on Stewart?
Like someone that'd be even better as an option?
Yeah, or somebody that would be better, or like is more likely to run and also just as good or close to as good. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
I don't know about anybody who's just as good or close to as good when it comes to the package, right? The celebrity, the being on Comedy Central for 78 years. I don't know if anybody comes to mind for Gavin. The one person who I have been like kind of growing interested in, because I think it's so obvious they are going to run for president and nobody else has announced. Obviously, if somebody more progressive announced or started to, really position themselves, if AOC announces, I would probably, go for AOC just because I think she would be the most left flank. But it seems like Ro Khanna really wants to be freaking president, man. And we've had our rows with Roe. You know what I mean? We've gone round and round. We've broken his balls on this show. We've had exchanges with one another. I respect that he's willing to get into the gutter and talk to a guy like me, which is really, there's no upswing for him outside of the fact that he truly believes in his job as a representative of the people. So I've got a lot of positive things to say about Roe. I think that he's made some missteps in the past, but he seems to be really positioning himself as an alternative to the Gavin Newsoms. He called out Chuck Schumer first, called for him to resign. Is there any part of you that gets excited about a guy like Roe?
I mean, I could definitely see myself supporting him in, if the field is not as robust as I would want it to be, and Ro Khanna is the best option that we have, I could see myself supporting him. My issues with Roe are probably more about, like, do you have the juice, bro? Do you have the sauce? Like, do you have, because, look, and I say a similar thing about AOC, if I'm being honest. There are moments where I look at AOC and she looks like a deer in headlights. Like, you could trip her up with a question or something. And like, there's this thing that you have to have if you're a public speaker or you're a politician. You have to have this vibe, this aura of, like, I'm going to say some shit and I'm standing on that shit. You can't have, like, the, oh, maybe you'll say something that totally changes my perspective like that. And there's this, I don't want to call it weakness, because I think that's maybe too strong a word, but there's something that I think I sense sometimes on AOC, that she's going to have like up her swagger a little bit to be the standard bearer. And I feel kind of similar about Ro Khanna, where it's like, look, you're great on a lot of the issues. You lead the way on a lot of the issues. I could see myself supporting either AOC or Ro Khanna in the proper circumstances. But, like, I need to see more juice. You got to give me more juice. You got to give me more of that it factor, and it's hard. It's a hard thing. If you don't just have it, it's a hard thing to just sort of create. So I do think that the sad thing is there's characters who are worse politically, worse policy-wise and substantively, who have more of that factor, and they're going to be a big problem for us, So it's almost like we need somebody who has... I'm thinking of somebody like Gavin Newsom, who has the wherewithal right now to say fucking pathetic when he sees what Chuck Schumer just did. And he looks like a sleazy car salesman, but he also has that vibe of, like, everybody can see him as the president. He looks like the president. He looks like the president in some shit that you would see in a movie or on ABC on some movie that's playing at like 4:00 in the morning. Like, he just has that vibe. He has that aura to him. And so I feel like in order to defeat that, we need a John Stewart who has an equal amount of juice, but is correct on the policies. And that's kind of why I've been really hoping it's John Stewart. But to your guys' point, I haven't seen much of an indication that he wants to do it. And that's kind of sad to me,
Yeah. 100%. Another big bummer for me has been Tim Walz, who, you famously hyped up and, did a lot of good work kind of educating people as to his accomplishments in Minnesota. It seems like ever since the Kamala loss, he's really become just more of an establishment ball boy. He recently sided against Omar Fateh in Minneapolis. He sided against Graham Plattner and weighed in for Janet Mills using his email list to help get her donation. So that was a real bummer.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The Vanguard will be there.